I really hope y'all could hear that meow. Sam, you don't need to go in the laundry room, baby. Hey y'all, my name is Nat. I hope you're having a terrific day today. And for this reading vlog, I'm going to be reading some of my anticipated releases. All right, before I get into anything bookish, make sure to hit like and subscribe down below, as well as tell me in the comments, were you anticipating these books? Have you already read these books? Did you love these books? Let's talk about it in the comments. Okay, so like I mentioned in my last anticipated releases vlog, these are basically an excuse for me to actually get read the books I'm really looking forward to. Otherwise, they're not gonna be prioritized, unfortunately. Videos will win out first. So I forced a video on them, and that means I could actually get them read. Once again, I do have two books that I'm gonna be talking about today. Both of these came out in April, and I was really excited for each of them, seeing as how I've loved books from both of these authors. First up is One of Us Knows by Alyssa Cole. I really liked Cole's prior thriller, When No One Is Watching. It got some mixed reviews from other people, but whenever I finally picked it up, I really liked it. It has some great themes going on in it, some really awesome commentary, then this like totally wild out there horror ending, which is something that I tend to really love. And so when I found out she was writing another thriller, I was ecstatic, because usually this author does tend to write more romances. However, with this one, we are following a woman who actually has dissociative identity disorder, which I'm very intrigued to see, because oftentimes that is a mental illness that's usually utilized in thrillers for a twist when it comes to the villain character. Yet I'm really interested to see how Cole treats it here, seeing as how our main character, who unfortunately kind of gets put in the middle of this investigation, is the one who suffers from it. And how does that affect her life? How does she work with it? Does it change her ability to solve the crime? I'm really excited to see all of that stuff. So in this book, we are following Kenatria Nash and her many alternate personalities. She recently has come to, and they are traveling to this island in the Hudson River. Apparently, this home is being conserved by a trust, and unfortunately for her, one of the men involved in this trust was a guy who sort of was responsible for her breakdown a few years prior, and then that guy ends up dead. I'm so excited for this. Like I said, I'm really hoping it's gonna be another wild, fun time. Also, maybe have some romance too, because When No One Is Watching actually is a bit spicier of a romance with, you know, suspense still taking place. And I'm intrigued if she's gonna keep that going on here. We'll find out together. But if I don't get my romance fix here, then I'm also planning to read Funny Story by Emily Henry for this video. I know this comes as no shock if you've spent any time on my channel. I've read and enjoyed all of Emily Henry's adult romances. In this one, I know we are following these two characters who I think end up becoming roommates after their fiancés leave each of them for each other. So her roommate is her ex-fiance's new fiance's ex-fiance. I think they like get invited to the wedding, and that's how they end up faking their relationship. So far, I've been hearing a lot of positive things, so I am very hopeful for it. The fact that this man is wearing Crocs, not a fave of mine, but I do love Emily Henry's work. I really appreciate that she has some heavier themes going on with the romances, so I'm curious to see what goes on here. I can't wait to see what she does with this new one. So I will talk to you all again when I've started into one of these books. Hey guys, so I have started into One of Us Knows by Alyssa Cole. Already I'm liking this, but I feel like for being 14 chapters in, I'm at 120 pages, we're still very much in the setup stage of what's showcased on the summary at the back. Literally all I've gotten is meeting our main character, Ken, introducing to her different headmates and how it works, and then seeing her traveling to the island. Like, that's all that's happened. And this is not a long book, so I'm a little concerned on how pacing is going to go, but I am really intrigued. I like how Cole is handling the DID. I think it's very interesting how we have alternating chapters through some of the different authors' perspectives, and you can feel in the tone and the writing itself that they're similar, but they're not the same. I'm very impressed by that. Then there are also occasional chapters where it's more like a journal entry. Yeah, here we go. So a collaborative journal. Each person will put in their own stuff and kind of talks about the history of what Ken has lived through. Ken is the kind of lead altar, it is technically her body, but she has actually been dormant for like the last 6 years. Another thing that's really cool is this is set just after COVID has sort of started to become less important in society. It's really weird to say like COVID's over because it's not. It's always going to be present now, but the terrible bits of the pandemic are not really still going. It's cool to see the different relationships she has with some of the altars. Solomon is the other one whose eyes we see from, and he and Ken have a really strange relationship that I won't get into specifics for spoilers. He's artistic, but he's also a tight ass. He's like very structured. There's also Empress, who is kind of like a giant fangirl, or I think her name was Kemi. I haven't seen a ton of her, but she is essentially a child. So there are already hints at some heavier topics going on, but none of them have really been dived into too much. There is one other person on the island, the groundskeeper, Celeste, and a little abrasive, not super excited that Ken is there, but at the same time realizes she's just going to be part of it. It's clear the people who take care of the island aren't the biggest fans of the trust that's kind of swooping in to take over official preservation and maybe like how it's run. I don't know, like, so there might be a little bit of politics going on there. We'll see. One way or another, I'm liking it. I'm intrigued. I'm just a little nervous as to how pacing is going to go moving forward, but one way or another, I can't wait to figure out what Cole is going to roll out here when it comes to twists and turns. So excited. Hey y'all, so I have continued reading Until One of Us Knows. I'm currently at chapter 29, about 235 pages in, and I'm liking this. I really am, but too much is given away in the summary here. The fact that somebody dies on the island has ruined part of the suspense. I would have been just as invested into the story, just knowing that Ken has DID, she has been dormant for the past 6 years, and now she is reemerged in a new world that has been ravaged by a pandemic, is being taken to this remote island by herself. Like, that is still interesting. That's enough to keep me engaged on its own, but because I'm predicting this event to take place and I'm waiting for it, partially ruins suspense. It makes me so curious on how things are going to possibly wrap up, because I'm so far into this book and we still haven't hit something that apparently is very crucial to the plot, at least according to the summary on the back. So that's really wonky, but I am liking Ken. We're actually getting to see some of the different personalities fronting her body, and so it's really cool to see the differentiations between each of them and how all of them use the body and react to certain stimuli in it. Also, how they react when threatened is very, very interesting. There's also one headmate that they know exists. They've never actually interacted with her, and they call her Rapunzel because she lives in the tower of this mental palace they've created for themselves, and they only ever hear her screaming. So that aspect of the story is anxiety inducing. There is a good amount of suspense going on there because I don't know what that is. They don't know what that is. The characters that we have met on this island are awful, terrible, but at the same time, I love that Ken can hold her own against them, and the other headmates having her back against them is just really great. But yeah, so this is going very well. I wish I didn't know that one piece of information. Hey guys, so I have finished out One of Us Knows by Alyssa Cole. Okay, I was very excited going into this, especially off of like how When No One Is Watching ends, because I love the ending in that book. It is ridiculous, but like wild and so much fun, and does like what I always want in a horror movie. You know, part of me was expecting that from this book, but at the same time, I wasn't really sure. I was really starting to wonder if I was gonna like how this was gonna close out, but I do think it has the same level of yeehaw, giddy up, this is gonna be a wild time. I'm just not 100% sure if I liked it that way. I really think my issues with this book come down to the setup and the pacing. I did really like the main character, 𝗖cie. I loved getting to meet her different alters, all of her different headmates, and see little things that differentiate each of them, but also like the role they play in keeping the system in check, what each of them does. I really liked all of that stuff and kind of getting to understand more about DID in that sort of way. From the research I've done, it does seem as though Cole put a lot of thought into the character of 𝗖cie that she created. She did a lot of research for DID. As far as I can find from reviews, it does seem like the representation was pretty well done, but you know, still take that with a grain of salt. Starts out kind of creepy and gothic almost, because you're so unsettled, and then there is some suspense going on because Ken doesn't know what's going on, so therefore you don't know what's going on. But I think that was more the selling point of the story than treating this book like a locked room murder mystery, which it did seem like that's kind of what Cole was going for at the end of the book, but I don't really think she fulfilled it. When I was looking at an interview she did talking about this book, I noticed that she mentioned treating a person with DID as like the gang of characters who are trying to investigate a murder. And I love that idea, but I really don't feel like that's what this book gave me. However, I do think knowing that was what she planned, it's not as big a deal if you know that this dude ends up murdered. Initially, I knew it, but then I started reading the book and I wondered, why was that shared in the summary? Because it takes forever to reach that point. When I realized what Cole was going for, it's like, okay, it makes sense, but I think that event needed to happen so much earlier in the book so we could actually see Ken and the different alters putting together the mystery of what's gone on. Instead, it's much more about the mystery of Ken and what's going on in her brain and what connection does she have with this island. Like I said, the pacing was just wonky because it's really slow, but then you hit the murder and things just go balls to the wall. It goes so fast, so quickly. Was I completely engrossed? Yes, I was. I could not look away. Was it the same brand of wild disturbingness that When No One Was Watching was? Most definitely. But upon reflection, the climax of this is so rushed. I just think the events of this book would have played out so much better if the beginning half was shortened and then the investigating half was extended, learning about Ken and the different alters sort of woven into the investigation a little bit more. The twists themselves, I don't even know how to talk about because some of them were predictable, some of them were completely out of left field, did not see that coming. One or two of them actually sort of flipped the script on what a character with DID's role is in thrillers, so I appreciated that. But I'm not really sure if I liked all of the twists that took place and how they all worked together. That said, I was still on the edge of my seat while reading this and I couldn't stop. I had to see how everything was gonna unfold. I don't know if I loved it, but shit was definitely wild. So this was a really complicated one to put in my cop pile. Like character work on Ken, absolutely 10 out of 10. Atmosphere, 10 out of 10. Writing, plot, wonky, kind of like 5 or 6-ish. So my rating for this came out to 3.5 stars. I think I'm gonna keep it on my shelves, but I didn't quite love it as much as the previous book by this author, though I am still intrigued to try some of her romance books. I absolutely would pick up another thriller by her though, because they're just so crazy. Hey guys, I definitely meant to film an update a little bit sooner than now for this. I have started into Funny Story. I'm currently 270 pages in. Sorry, but I actually was reading this while on a road trip. So like I read it when we were going down to Austin and then I read it when we were coming back from Austin and didn't take the time to film an update between those two. However, even if I didn't have that excuse, I wouldn't have been surprised if it took me a while to talk to y'all because I'm loving this. I am feeling the same way about this book that I felt when I read Beach Read for the first time, where I was just so completely enamored with the story and the characters that I never wanted to stop reading. I think this might be like my new second favorite of Emily Henry's work. I loved Book Lovers, I did, but this is really working for me. And it's so funny because it's a fake dating story. And I don't usually like fake dating. It's a trope that 9 times out of 10 really just aggravates me. I really hope y'all could hear that meow. Sam, you don't need to go in the laundry room, baby. But very similar to my last fake dating book I read, they act like they're dating in little moments here and there, and the rest of the time they're just friends. Miles is doing his best to try and convince Daphne that she needs to stay in this small town, that just because her ex is an asshole and still lives there doesn't mean she needs to run away, because there's still wonderful things about it that she hasn't got to experience yet, and I'm loving that. I love seeing these two connect while also going on these little adventures together, and it's very much reminiscent of dating, but at the same time, for them, a lot of it is just them becoming better friends. And I'm really convinced by their friendship. Then the sexual tension that happens in multiple different scenes, oh my God, it is so good. I am just glued to the page every time it happens. Oh, it's delicious. I'm loving it. And at the same time, I do think the way the fake dating is set up here is just so much fun for me because I'll admit, it tickles that petty part of my brain perfectly. The only reason Daphne initially pretends they're dating is just to get back at her ex and to sort of rub Miles, who she knows her ex doesn't like, in his face. Them both being bitter and petty and realizing this, and then also just like playing it up and having fun with it anytime they do have to fake date it's delicious. It's so good. Really just enjoying the character work around Daphne. She does have some background issues, as per usual with Emily Henry's stories. All the characters always have some baggage, usually related to parents in some way, shape, or form. She's got a bit of daddy issues, unfortunately, and Miles also has some problems with his mom. And I really like how they've connected with each other because of them, but also the vulnerability they only really allow the other person to see, I think is just making me more and more invested in their romance. And it's led to a lot of very sweet and romantic moments where they just showcase to one another that they're there for them. I also just like the element of trying to make friends as an adult. I'm never not impressed at Emily Henry's character work, honestly. I am frothing at the mouth for these two to officially become a couple. I really had to like make myself stop and remember I needed to film an update because I was about to pick this up and just keep on reading. I have a lot of tabs going on here. It's so funny as normal. It's very cute. So this is going fantastically. If I don't love this equal to or just slightly less than Beach Read, I'm gonna be sad, honestly. Hey guys, so I have finished out Funny Story and I adored this. I truly loved it so much. In terms of my ranking for Henry's romances, I would probably say this is on par with Beach Read. Really, the only reason Beach Read probably wins out is because of the fact that it does remind me so much of my own relationship, but this was so good. It was so cute. It was so fun. I really liked the depth that was there with the characters when it came to the issues they had with their parents, and both of them, I felt like they were very believable in how the characters acted. I understood how the things they've experienced as kids were impacting their actions as adults, and then also how those issues were then impacting the ability for them to work as a couple, and how they move through it was so good. The third act conflict, like you can see coming from a mile away. There was an element of it that did still drive me crazy, but I could understand why that character did that. It did make sense for everything we'd seen about that person, but even still doesn't mean I had to like it. The way they come back together is just so cute. And I think one of the things for me that I really loved about Miles is he was just constantly there for Daphne. And there was something so romantic in the small things he would do for her and the small ways she would showcase how she's figured out who he is, and he would do the same to her. It was, I loved that about it. The importance of those small things in relationships and being there for a person when they need you. How integral it played in their relationship. It was so good. Obviously, I had a million tabs because Emily Henry's writing just makes me feel everything. I mean, I was happy, I was sad, I was squealing, I was crying. I really just had a phenomenal time reading this book. It was perfect. I loved it. The friendships that are built here were so good. I was really convinced by every single side character as well. I was just as invested in what was happening in the side characters' lives as I was in the main two. On one hand, that's just so impressive writing wise, but on the other hand, I loved it for the fact of they're basically kind of forming their own little found family, and it was so sweet. I really did adore it. There was a satisfying part that took place with her ex that I did love that Henry gave us that. And while I still can't believe Miles wears Crocs, I was swooning for him by the end, I'll admit. Okay, both of y'all are like really crowding me. Why is this necessary? Anyway, I loved this. I really did. This was a glowing 5 stars. Thank God. I don't know if Emily Henry can write anything that I won't enjoy. And so on that note, that is it for today, y'all. Thank you so much for coming to my channel. I really appreciate it. Make sure to hit like and subscribe down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, leave me a bouquet emoji in the comments. I have all my socials as well as a few ways you can support me, linked in the description. I come out with videos on Monday and Friday, but until then, I hope you continue to have a terrific day. Love you, bye!